So what I find really fascinating about coming to iwCLL is how there are scientific sessions and clinical sessions running on sequential days, and that the clinical audience are there for the scientific sessions and the scientists are there for the clinical sessions. Because for me, CLL has become the disease where it's understanding the science that's driving the improvements in the treatment. Our most effective treatments that we have, ibrutinib and venetoclax, have come from a true understanding of the biology of the disease. For me, the highlights in terms of thinking about the science that we've seen at this meeting, and I've got to say it's been a really high level of science that we've heard, has been starting to think about how the clonal architecture within the disease really varies. Now, we'd always been brought up to believe that cancer was a clonal disease where every cell was an identical copy of each other. We now know, of course, that's far too simplistic. And there were some really interesting models from people like Cathy Wu, from Bernard, talking about how we can start to look at that heterogeneity and try to understand what are the cells from which this cancer has arisen. And I think there's been a great deal of thought about how we get rid of most of the cancer cells, but and how when we stop that therapy, the disease comes back. If we want to get to the next step and want to get to cure, we want to get to that cell that's at the bottom. Understanding what changes happen within those cells, understanding how we can understand what those are and what are the machinery that drives those cells to survive, means that we can come up with the rational targets to get that. If we can get rid of that last cell, it's kind of like taking the root out of your weeds in the garden. If you can get rid of the roots, you're going to get rid of the whole disease. So thinking about using things like next generation sequencing, epigenetic regulations, understanding microRNAs, all of that is very important in terms of the science. But what it all comes down to is trying to understand what's the biology that drives a normal cell to become malignant and become a CLL cell. And everything we were hearing was an audience sitting there trying to understand how can we take that scientific knowledge and apply it in our clinical practice using the combinations of agents that we have, and what are the other agents we might need to develop to target those other types of cells. There are always going to be individuals who don't respond the way that others do, and we have to develop other types of therapies that will complement what we already have. And of course, what we're seeing at this meeting also is how by already combining the very best agents that we have, you have to be thinking already the next step of, well, what do we do next? And that's where the science drives the discovery within CLL.